Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are having a little bit of a technical issue with our guest, Linda, who's in Cameroon. So we're waiting to fix that, but we're very happy to have you with us today for the second part of this series on circularity in the cocoa industry and how we can create more momentum around sustainability and circularity practices in this industry that has been suffering a lot lately from over regulations, from prices that are being cut down, and from, of course, the lack of byproducts opportunity that we are seeking to create. Linda is back with us. Hi, Linda.
I should say,
Hi, Linda.
AU, thank you for having me on this conversation around circularity and sustainability in the cocoa sector, especially here in Cameroon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining. So I will briefly introduce the topic of today. So topic of today is circularity in cocoa industry, specifically in Cameroon, and how we can drive and create more value-added opportunities at source, at farm level, so that more value gets into the hands of the people that actually grow cocoa, which are the farmers together with the cooperatives. For those who don't know me, I'm Jean-Christian Andoni. I'm the founder and CEO of Symbiosis Infinity Group. We're a consulting company that supports circularity in supply chain, as well as the creation of impactful and ethical partnerships between developing markets and developed regions. And Linda is one of our trusted partners in Africa, in Cameroon. And I will let you introduce yourself, Linda, and also Roots and Susan Power.
Thank you once again, Jose. I am Linda Tatabord. I am a corporate social responsibility and sustainability strategist here in Cameroon, Roots and Suits Empower. I am honored to lead that organization. We do support organizations, especially private sector companies, public organizations, and civil society organizations to scale the governance and execution of the CSR and sustainability uh, initiatives. So we have been working with SIG for a year or more now, and we are interested in looking, beyond just doing business to actually seeing how we can reach out to local communities to ensure that all the stakeholders in different value chains are able to get the maximum out of, the different businesses that our companies are running.
Great, right. Thank you. I love that, and I think we know that how we connect is that we recently realized that we have the same mindset, the same purpose, and same mission, and it's a pleasure to be able to cooperate with you and all your team. So thank you everyone for joining again. We're going to start with the Q&A. Today is a Q&A model. As you have noticed, we'll switch every 2 weeks, one Q&A model, one type of more webinar oriented with a presentation model, and we'll let you know at the end of the series. This show today, what will be next for in 2 weeks. Now, if you please don't hesitate to drop a comment in the comment section, whether you're watching this live or the recording. We'll be happy to connect with you during the show or after the show to see how we can exchange ideas, create synergies, and bring circularity in this industry that has been suffering very much since the beginning of this year, as I was saying at the beginning. So, Linda, Cameroon is not really known as Ghana, for example, or as Côte d'Ivoire for its cocoa industry. Nevertheless, it's still a major player in West Africa. So, how do you see Cameroon moving from exporting just raw cocoa products to building circular, value-driven cocoa ecosystems?
Okay, thank you for that question, Gise. Yes, it's true. Cameroon may not be as known as Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire in terms of cocoa supply in the global market. However, it remains a major player here in Africa. Just some very quick statistics before we go into sustainability and circularity in the cocoa sector in Cameroon is to understand that Cameroon's cocoa industry contributes an estimated 3% about that to our national GDP directly. and over 8% to agricultural GDP. And this sector has recently become the country's leading export revenue generator, exceeding 810 billion francs CFA in 2025 alone. According to our National Cocoa and Coffee Board, Cameroon produced about 309,000 tons of cocoa during the 2024-2025 season. So yes, this is significant. And we are looking at driving sustainability and circularity in this sector to give more value to what we offer as products to the global market. Cameroon currently processes approximately 25 to 35% of its cocoa locally, compared to more than 60%, like we say in Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, of course, in terms of combined grinding capacity. Yet, we have approximately 70 to 80% of global cocoa value that is captured at the cocoa, chocolate, and finished goods stage. So it's important that we begin to make a shift towards that phase in terms of scaling local grinding capacity into butter, into cake, into powder, for example, to also incentivize more the secondary processing units, chocolates, cosmetics, nutraceuticals, that's for the food industry, to also push forward in terms of establishing industrial cocoa clusters near our seaports, the big one here, Douala, where most of the exports leave from Cameroon, and of course, begin to introduce more export taxes or differential pricing on raw beans versus processed goods. If you look at a country like Indonesia, for example, they have succeeded actually in making sure that they can initiate this differential prices in terms of, processed goods versus raw, which we think it's something that is doable here in Cameroon if we have all our parties working together to put in place the circularity and sustainability system in our cocoa sector.
Yeah. Thank you for this answer. And you just touched a very important point. It's also very important to bring all the stakeholders within the ecosystem, the relevant stakeholders. So not just only in terms of private sector, but also government organizations, NGOs, impact funding investors, so that by creating a proper ecosystem with the proper stakeholders, we can really drive circularity initiatives that are meaningful and impactful at farm level, because this is what we're looking at, is to create more employment opportunities, more technical expertise, a higher standard of living, and more revenue share for the people that actually have been growing the fruit, and that, even after decades, and if not hundreds of years, still only capture a small portion of the value of the trade that's being put within the supply chain, which is unbelievable when you look at it. But this is why, discussions like this are very important, because it drives creativity, it drives innovation, it drives out of the box thinking, so that we can really evaluate what are the circularity opportunities. So coming to this, for example, in Cameroon, where do you see the biggest opportunities to apply circular economy principles across the value chain in the cocoa vertical in Cameroon specifically?
Yes, Jose, we can look at circularity potentials at different stages of the cocoa value chain. If we look at the farm level, for example, we have a composting of cocoa pods, which would help reduce fertilizer costs by about 20 to 30%, of course. We have a big impact in terms of agroforestry, improving yields and carbon sequestration, which is what we are all pushing forward for in terms of climate change. At the level of processing, we have biomass energy from husk, which we can obtain. That can offset between 30 to about 50% in terms of factory energy needs. We also have possibilities for water recycling systems for the fermentation and washing in this sector. If we look at the post-processing level, we also see that so much can be done in terms of packaging innovation, like biodegradable cocoa-based materials. Okay, so globally, high impact leverage points in terms of opportunities for circularity in this sector would be looking at the waste streams. Cameroon generates millions of tons of cocoa pod husk annually, most of which remain underutilized. And we think that, with this system we want to put in place, the circularity system, we should be able to leverage on that capacity we are producing beyond just, selling raw cocoa beans.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that, that along the way in my journey in the cocoa industry, which is recently started, the first thing that really struck me is the fact that the bean represent only a small portion of the fruit, and
Yeah.
that the rest of the fruit is practically underutilized or not utilized at all. So,
Mhm.
we have different subproducts like the bean, what we call the cocoa bean pod, which is the pod that goes around the bean that is discarded because it's not used within the processing operations and is treated as waste. We also have the pulp, which has also a lot of different applications, and we have the cocoa shell, which is the husk, which is the complete outer shell that is totally discarded, left on in the field, sometimes used by local farmers either to feed their animals or also to use as fertilizer. But for example, as we discussed before, the cocoa husk has a lot of pectin inside, and
Yeah.
pectin is a very valuable sub ingredient, specifically in the nutraceutical
Mhm.
industry, and also high value food ingredient that can be used in many different industrial and commercial applications. And this is where we see that there is a lot that can be done in the cocoa
Exactly.
industry when it comes to circularity.
That's
When we move away a little bit from this just raw material, but going into their transformation. So it's
Mhm.
one thing to have the raw material, but it's another thing to be able to transform it to really add value, because we want to go, at the end of the day, bringing the circularity and more value means going further than just exporting the raw material, going
that's what-
into a transformation process. So where do you see this happening in Cameroon, and how do you see this happening?
Uh, in Cameroon, cocoa generates, like I said, approximately 10 tons of waste for every 1 ton of cocoa beans. Our major cocoa farming regions remain the southwest region, the center, and the south regions of Cameroon. And these are great opportunities where we can actually reach out to the local farmers at source to set up these transformation units to be able to generate additional income streams from cocoa byproducts. So there are quite a number of commercial pathways that we see in terms of cocoa pods, just like you had said, cocoa pods could be transformed into organic fertilizer. The
Yeah.
shells could be transformed into biofuel or activated carbon. We also have the pulp, which we can transform into beverages, ethanol, and of course, animal feed. And we have butter derivatives we can get from cocoa, which can be used in as cosmetics and in the pharmaceutical industry as well. So we think that the huge opportunities, not even thinking, we know that there are huge opportunities. All these communities need is a push at different levels to be able to put in place transformation units right from source to get these byproducts or derivatives from cocoa and be able to help them generate more income from this valuable product that they produce for the global market.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for touching base to that. And here I will send a little call out because we are working together with Linda and Roots Institute of Empower, and also with Erica Johnson from Fellow Future, with Lloyd Lepage, with whom we have memorandum of understandings and agreements in order to drive this transformation and this circularity in the Cameroon cocoa industry. So this is one of the major projects that we are doing together with Linda and with all our partners, and we're very excited about this. The future about the cocoa industry is definitely around circularity. The opportunities are there. It's just a matter of putting, all the stakeholders that can have a positive impact and input together in order really to create a solid ecosystem that will enable driving the drive of the value at source while still being commercially viable for all the investors and stakeholders as well. Because we're talking a lot about circularity, but circularity doesn't necessarily mean lack of profit. I would say the opposite. We are combining profit making, circularity, and impact in order really to create what we call meaningful business and impactful business. And this
Yeah.
is what it's all about. So if you are interested, if someone's watching live or late at the later stage the replay, if you are interested in driving this type of circularity and sustainability initiatives in Africa, in the cocoa industry or elsewhere, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to discuss how we can together create some synergies. Um, when we discussed, the first question was the fact that Cameroon is not necessarily known as the premium destination or source to for cocoa product. But of course, there is a big differentiation that can be made, specifically that the cocoa in Cameroon has a particular taste that adds to the refined taste of chocolate compared to other countries. So, what role do you see sustainability playing in positioning really Cameroon cocoa as a premium product globally, not counting on mass, but counting on the specific taste that the cocoa has in Cameroon?
Thank you for that question, Gise. Just like you said, beyond looking at just doing business, cocoa from Cameroon has, it's particular in terms of taste, in terms of, flavors. Uh, Sustainability would bring more value to Cameroon's cocoa product if we look at the fact that global demand is shifting rapidly in terms of sustainable products. So we look at the European market, for example, about 65% of European consumers prefer sustainably sourced chocolate. And of course, if we are looking, having Europe as one of our major markets in terms of exports, we need to start shifting, to ensuring that our products are more sustainable. So many of these markets are also, foreign markets are also requiring certified cocoa, like the Rainforest Alliances or fair trade deals. And this demands that, we are able to step up between 10 to about 30% in terms of premium pricing. So it's important that this differentiation is made in terms of the cocoa that comes, from here. We can look at the deforestation-free supply chains, for example, or child labor-free certifications as some of the things that, the sustainability system would bring, in terms of value to our cocoa products so far.
Yeah.
So strategically, Cameroon can position itself as a high-quality, traceable, ethically produced African cocoa, especially in premium markets, like you said, like the European Union, with the new AUDR laws that are there. It's important that we make that shift and begin to align to this new international regulations in place.
Yeah, thank you for this clear answer. And you're right, you touched on very important points. There's a lot of points that are related to sustainability in the cocoa industry that have already been in place for many years, such as the child-free labor, EUDR regulation, traceability, which is a very important also aspect in the cocoa industry. So definitely looking at this, as I said, the positioning of Cameroon should be one of a premium grade cocoa type of source with a lot of circular initiatives and a lot of circularity and sustainability initiatives within the cocoa ecosystem. And as you mentioned, nowadays it's all about sustainability. It's all about circularity when it comes to consumption, especially in the cocoa, in the chocolate industry. But if we go beyond that, when we look at the entire cocoa fruit, is just like the bean, of course, is very important. But when we talk about derivatives, like the bean pod, like the husk, there's so many different applications and industrial applications and commercial applications that can be applied within the cocoa fruit. It's not just the chocolate. It's about the food and beverages. It's about cosmetic. It's also about biodegradable packaging. And on more long term, there's a lot of studies that are being very promising when it comes to biofuel. And this is huge. And people don't necessarily associate the cocoa with all these other industries, while other parts of the fruits have tremendous applications. It's just a matter of driving the circularity towards this byproducts and towards this other material that are part of the fruit in order to push the farmers to differentiate their production, therefore differentiate their revenue sources, while still responding to a higher and increasing demand for all these subsidiary products apart from the bean.
Yeah.
So, there has been a lot of course, initiatives and talks around sustainability in the cocoa industry for the past 15 or 20 years now. But what we really want to ensure is how do we ensure that this actually translate into increase of income for local farmers that at the same time will increase their standard of living as well as their quality of life, because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we, as advocates for livelihood for local communities and, of course, fair business, this is the critical success condition. How do we reach out and ensure that, within this value chain, the farmers or the local communities that are producing this cocoa can make the best out of it? So
Yeah.
we look at different kinds of mechanisms around, ensuring that circularity initiatives directly impact local farmers in terms of revenue sharing, for example, revenue sharing models for byproducts, with emphasis on working with cooperatives to own processing units. It's important. This is key. We need to find a way how to transform and process from source. Not
Yeah.
only is that less costly, but it also gives the opportunity for these farmers to be able to live or get the most in terms of benefits from their products. That way, we are not only just getting them to sell raw cocoa, but they can also enjoy the benefits of the entire value chain, transforming, processing, and of course, this will help create jobs local for local people, for youth, and just bring some improvement in terms of livelihood for these local farmers. If you come to Cameroon, you still realize that poverty remains a concern in this
Yeah.
farming communities, and it's disturbing when we look at how much impact cocoa has in the global market, or even cocoa from Cameroon, and we try to do a comparative analysis with living conditions for these local communities or farming communities. It's quite disturbing, and we think that
Yeah.
we have the chance and opportunity to make it better for them through implementing the circularity and sustainability system, where every stakeholder, every actor is able to get a fair share of the industry. So, like I said, we look at revenue sharing. The current reality here in Cameroon is that farmers capture only 6 to 8% of final chocolate value globally, and this is a concern. Our target in terms of ensuring that circularity brings more value to these people aims at increasing farmer share to between 15 and about 20% through local processing participation,
Yeah.
like we said. So when we have these industries in place, we can start on a very small scale and then see and then expand over time. We can be able to get direct trade models for these people, and of course ensure that value added diversification comes from different byproducts and derivatives from cocoa. This is doable, and I think that what we are trying to put in place in the cocoa sector here would go a long way to improve the living conditions, business, not only business, but the living conditions for these local farming communities.
Great answer. Thank you. I love that. And this is what it's all about, also to be able to measure the impact that, the circularity and sustainability initiative have within the local communities, not only at farm level, but also overall for the overall communities and population as a whole, because we all know that entire communities, villages, and even cities in West Africa, like in Cameroon, depend on this type of industry. So when the industry is not doing well, then it's, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that are not having enough to eat on their plate, or not having housing issues, or not being able to send their kids to school, or have access to healthcare. So it's really the principle of that our business should be a force for good in the livelihood of people. We
That's right.
know it works. We know it works because it's been done before, right? We know that the opportunities are here because we have together identified them and we're working on them. We know that there are stakeholders, either companies, government, investors, that are willing and ready to move forward these type of initiatives. And it's just time to bring everyone together and to have a little bit of, I would say, disruptive ideas when it comes to an industry that has been working in very similar ways for decades, if not for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
We're not saying that we want to take away the business from the processing companies. No, there's enough room for everyone to make a fair value, a fair
That's
share
right.
of value within the supply chain, within the ecosystem. So, why
That's right.
not move away a little bit of value from the big guys and move them to the small guys, so that we have a little bit more balance in the cocoa vertical.
That's good.
What do you think
Absolutely.
are the main challenges and the barriers to drive these circular projects? I mean, we see it day by day when we talk about our project, but what do you think are the main challenges that companies can face when it comes to bringing really impactful circularity.
Mhm. Why we acknowledge the fact that the government of Cameroon, especially through the National Cocoa and Coffee Board, are doing a lot to improve performance in this sector. They've been doing a lot in terms of shifting from just raw cocoa bean exports to actually putting in place transformation units, especially
Mm-hmm.
in the cocoa farming regions, with some major processing units. We can find about 6 major processing units in Cameroon so far. We think that more can be done, and the barriers ranging from structural to operational to economic, which we would like to highlight, which we think that these are elements that if there's a proper coordination with the different stakeholders, we should be able to overcome these barriers and make implementing the sustainable and circular practices to help scale the cocoa industry. So if we look at structural barriers like limited access to finance, especially for the SMEs or the micro cooperatives, like I say again, it is a huge problem. We have
Yeah.
energy costs and unreliable infrastructure, which is not also helping. And of course, like I said, the government and of course the National Cocoa Board is doing a lot in terms of putting, policies and regulations to help. The enforcement sometimes of these policies is somehow weak. So we think that there is more push that we can do at that level in terms of enforcing policies. If we look at operational barriers, would range from fragmented supply chains in terms of smaller holder dominance. There is
Yeah.
the chain. The chain is a bit complicated with a lot of middlemen, which makes it difficult for these local farmers to actually get what they truly deserve from this product. We think that these are things that can be properly fixed in such a way that everyone throughout that line is able to get their fair share of the business. We also have low technical capacity in circular processing technologies, which we think these are things that government is already working on, but more can be done to scale at this level in terms of processing technology. There are also market barriers like limited branding for the cocoa, Cameroonian cocoa, which is what you raised at the beginning. Yes, Cameroon remains one of those major players in terms of cocoa supply in the global market. However, there is not as much as the kind of branding that we think we should have out there to sell this cocoa to the world. There is also dependence on international commodity pricing, which we think are things that could also, be regulated and made in such a way that it gets better for our cocoa sector. So
Yeah.
yes, these barriers are there; they are real. However, like I say again, the government is doing a lot in terms of driving performance and scaling
Yeah.
through the cocoa industry for quite some number of years now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for this detailed answer. Yeah, and it's I've been following up, what the government in Cameroon has been doing in the cocoa industry, and over the past few years, and there's been a lot of positive regulation and positive input when it comes also specifically with the traceability to
Mhm.
implement real traceability within the cocoa vertical in Cameroon, and these are all types of projects that really help drive quality, innovation, and sustainability within the cocoa sector.
Yeah.
Because in a world where traceability and quality are extremely important, it is
Mhm.
crucial that we do not forget this element when we bring our circularity initiatives and sustainability as well into the mix. It is, I would say, useless to bring circularity if a product doesn't have the quality that it needs to be sold on the market. And it all
That.
comes back to the most important stakeholder in all this. At the end of the day, one of the two most important stakeholders is the consumer. If the consumer is happy, then the consumer buys. If the consumer buys, then there is a market, then there is a supply chain, then there is a producer, there is a farmer, there are families, communities, villages that can thrive today thanks to this. So it's very important that we relate as well the circularity initiatives into the marketing plan, into the branding identity of the brands that implement this with us, because it's one thing, and I've seen it over and over again. Companies are
Mhm.
doing great circularity initiatives, but they don't drive it towards their consumer. And this
That.
is very important to do, because
Yeah.
once a consumer knows that you are a conscious company, that you do your business in an ethical and conscious way, then
Mhm.
their loyalty is stronger. Then your sales cycles are shorter. then the repetition of sales are bigger, and therefore your marketing costs drop, therefore your profit increases, and
Sure.
then everyone wins.
Absolutely.
And everyone. I see a lot of thumbs up moving on the screen, so that's good. Thank you for everyone for interacting. Don't be
Yeah.
shy in terms of comments, dropping some comments. I know that most of the time people react after the show, and that's okay. Feel free to connect with us right after the show. You will be able to access our profiles on LinkedIn and connect directly with us. As we're already passing the 30-minute mark, and we promised ourselves to keep this within 30 to 35 minutes, otherwise it can last for 2 hours. I'll have a final questions. If we look, 10 years down the road in Cameroon, how do you see, what would a true circular and sustainable cocoa industry look like if we meet again, which I'm sure we'll do, but we'll meet also in the meantime in 10 years. How would this look like for you?
We would say it looks promising. It looks realistic. However, it is an ambitious picture for us in Cameroon, but it's doable. If we look at in line with our national strategic vision for 2035, we feel that we can achieve this. If we have to look at some key aspects such as production, for example, so looking at achieving 100% traceable and deforestation-free cocoa, for example, like you had raised as we've been talking, to ensure agroforestry as a dominant farming model. So we want to stay really on driving circularity and sustainability within that sector to give the kind of value that we need for our products. If we look at processing, for example, we want to envisage about 60% of local transformation rates, which is not the case today. We are on about 10-15%. And then also ensure zero waste processing facilities. If we want to put in place processing facilities, we ensure that we meet all the ESG environmental measures for such kinds of facilities. We look at the economic at the economic level. We look at the fact that thriving byproduct industries are key, like using other cocoa byproducts to generate to produce fertilizers, to generate energy for the cosmetic industry, and so many of those things that will bring more value to this industry. And then, most especially, which is key for us as sustainability advocates, is to ensure that farmer incomes are doubled. It's not the case today. We need to ensure that we can, through this, wonderful product that is, making waves, not only for the country, but globally, to ensure that those who are farming these products from grassroots can improve their livelihoods through alternative income streams from the cocoa product. Environmentally, we want to look at having a net positive carbon footprint, ensuring that carbon sinks through integrated systems, bring more, sustainability to this industry. To get to this goal, what must happen now is the fact that we need more national impulse in terms of industrialization strategy, secular focused. That's what we're saying, and we're trusting that what we want to build together in this industry should be able to be the bedrock of what we want for the new cocoa industry in Cameroon. Investment pipelines for processing, for example, plus byproduct innovation are the things we have to look at. Farmer-centered business models, we continue to insist like that on that, like our circularity and sustainability, of course, system that we want to do at source from the farms, traceability, infrastructure rollout, and of course, strong branding. Again, strong communication and branding for Cameroon's sustainable cocoa. So I would say that this is what we see in the next 10 years. And this, I can say with every certainty that with all these right stakeholders in place, the right mechanisms in place, and the system in place, this is achievable.
Beautiful. I think, thank you for these last words and this future vision of what it means to bring circularity and sustainability in the cocoa industry in Cameroon. And of course, we talked about Cameroon today specifically, but there are so many other regions and countries like Ghana, like Ivory Coast, that where circularity can be brought if we have the right goals and mindset, and of course the right stakeholders put together in order to succeed in these ventures. So just as a few key takeaways for today, everyone that join us or will watch the replay, the key takeaways are Circularity is definitely possible to be extended within the cocoa industry at an even further level. We have the opportunities to create more revenues for farmers, for cooperatives, for families, for communities,
Yeah.
and this can be driven by generating additional revenue sources to extract more value from the cocoa fruit, not just the beans, like we've been doing for decades, but we're talking about cocoa bean pod that can be grinded and used in as a powder in the food and beverage industry. And there are many companies that are already buying this or using this either as biofuel, but also as an ingredient to produce all types of bakery and food products as well as beverages. We're talking about the cocoa husk, which is totally discarded, left on the field, generating a lot of waste and polluting the soils as well within the cocoa plantations. And here the cocoa husk can be used to extract pectin for the nutraceutical and cosmetic industry, which is a more than multi-billion dollar business as well. And we're talking about not only using these raw materials that can be exported but also transformed by
Yeah.
bringing the ecosystem of industrial partners, of impact investors, of a circular and sustainability consultant like ourselves as expert in order to really drive this through, along, of course, with cooperation with the cooperatives and the farmers. Altogether, we can really create a new cocoa model that can not only support the livelihood of hundreds of thousands of people across Africa, but as well help your company generate more profit, more revenue, because we know that nowadays it's all about circularity, it's all about sustainability. If you're a chocolate manufacturer or if you're a food and ingredient and beverage manufacturer, you know very well that your consumers are looking for this type of product, and that by bringing the circularity within your supply chain, within your ecosystem, you will be able to benefit from a larger pool of consumers, more loyal, and that spend more money. And at the end of the day, this will have a trickle down effect all the way down to the source, which is what we're looking for with this type of initiatives. So, Linda, thank you. Thank you for your time today. I know we will speak in a couple of hours regarding our projects. Really
Yeah.
appreciate your time today. Thank you again for all the work that you're doing in terms of sustainability with Roots and Susan Power, and your team, Paul and Etienne, are wonderful people that I have the great pleasure to partner up with. And for the people that are watching this live or the replay, the next episode will be in 2 weeks. We will have a surprise for you. We will get, as we're talking about source, about farmer, about cooperatives, we are excited to bring you a special guest from one of the local cooperatives and farmers association in Cameroon in the cocoa industry, because we want to give them a voice as well. It's great to talk about circularity between us, to engage different stakeholders, but the most important stakeholder in all of this are the farmers, are the cooperatives that are on the field, that have been making a living through the cocoa industry for decades. And this is where we will give them a voice. So stay tuned. We'll make the announcement in 1 week or so. And we look forward to having you here. Drop your comment, drop your questions, connect with us on LinkedIn. If we all work together in the spirit of equity, of positive business, and of fairness and ethics, there is no challenges that we cannot overcome. So feel free to join us, discuss with us, exchange ideas. We're always happy to connect with like-minded people.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It was a great pleasure for me to engage with you on this very important conversation on circularity and sustainability in the cocoa sector. To you all viewers out there, those who listen to us, thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing your comments with us. Like Jesse says, together we can make a difference. Thank you so much, and until then, we say goodbye.
We say
Thank you.
goodbye. Thank you. Take care. Bye,
Take care.
everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.